So I'm Syed Ahsan Aslam. I'm the head of disruption at OneLink, and primarily my role entails product development, marketing, and corporate communications. Along with that, the whole of business strategy is driven through my department. So what we have done is we have set up the complete personalization bureau here as well, which is PayPark certified, which is Union Pay certified. And we are offering co-badge cards as well. So consumers which want to have local as well as international acceptance is something which we are doing here. On the digital front, specifically if you ask, so we have started tokenization, so which is the motion of doing a tap and pay transaction at POS terminals across merchants. So that is something which we are working on, and we have already signed up a bank and we are in the process of launching. So hopefully by end of Q1 we will have something in the market which is to the effect that your mobile phone becomes a card, so you tap and pay and go. So that creates a frictionless experience for the consumer. In addition to this, we are also adding some value on not just the consumer side but on the security side. So what we are trying to do is create a cyber threat intelligence platform. Invariably it will help the consumers as well, because once we are able to secure industry, automatically consumer confidence on digital payments increases. So that's how we are tackling this digital consumer demand in the market. And then last but not the least, so we are collaborating with everyone. So fintechs, there are new EMIs, PSO, PSP. So all of them, wherever we can offer our services, we are offering them so that they create those use cases. And what we do is do the transaction switching, which we are good at. So we already have connections with 38 banks, 71 unique billers, so that nobody has to go and reinvent the wheel unnecessarily. So once you have that critical mass already in place, what you simply have to do is create a use case and do it. So there are various fintechs which are interacting with us and trying to enable a payment experience within their use case. One exciting thing which we are working on, but it's still in work in progress, is the QR motion. So we have a product by the name of OneQR. And initially we had launched it as primarily as a like P2P payment method, but now we are actually working on creating an acquiring ecosystem for the QRs. So that is something which will also give benefit or give ease to the consumers, where they will be able to have massive number of merchants having QRs which they can scan and pay. So OneQR is actually almost a 2-year-old concept. So we introduced this, but at that time there was not much of a traction in the market, and we have seen various QR initiatives fail in the market. So obviously it was expected that because QR is a very cheap method as compared to having a physical POS, which costs you $200 to $300. So if you have a small merchant who is displaying a QR, it was expected that every other person in the business space will have a QR and off they go. But that didn't happen. So we went back to the drawing board, and what we have tried to do is now create a substantial merchant base which has QRs, and then have a kind of a discount mechanism which is linked to this initiative, so that people are enticed and they do this. So we are in the process of finalizing the complete model. So maybe by mid of the year we will be launching this across the board. When EMIs come in, they should be able to open up more customer segments. And what will happen is these EMIs we expect will not just have a wallet. These are backed with certain use cases. So we already have 2-3 players who we are discussing with. What they've done is their primary business case is where they are driving the use case, but once they have funds in the wallet, they can do pretty much everything. So any any EMI which will eventually have funds in their accounts or in their wallets will try to enable bill payments. They will try to open up fund transfers, P2P or P2G, whatever is available. So technically EMIs and other non-banking players will add value. So when we talk about digital transactions in Pakistan, it's still very limited. And there is a lot of untapped market. So there is no competition per se in Pakistan. If you have a use case and you are able to tap it, that's a complete new segment you will open up. We are pretty confident that with the entrance of these new players, it will eventually create more awareness. That's one big add for the industry, because they will be able to go out, find their own niche and create that consumer awareness. And in turn, someone will eventually come in the banking or the digital payments fold. When you talk about MPG, it's a definite addition. So the way we see it is that will be creating an ecosystem where OneLink services will be leveraged, because OneLink has already contributed a lot in the industry and has added quite a few services which are there. So that is a complementary angle to this platform. State Bank has envisioned is definitely an improvement where they want to say that the actual movement of funds should happen in real time as well. And that happens once you have a particular faster payment rails which they have planned to launch. So once that happens, whatever OneLink does as a credit to the consumer for the interbank fund transfer, which is instant, the bank end which was being done in T+1 or end of day would get done immediately. So we will integrate with MPG and then pass on that. So eventually this will be just making it more efficient. More importantly, our understanding of MPG is that improvement required on the government sector. There are systems, Customs has a system, FBR has a system, there are so many systems at the back end. Once MPG is there, all these systems will be eventually enhanced, and then MPG becomes a layer in between us or any other party and these systems which are interacting with government. So if that happens, it actually creates more ease for entities like OneLink, because then we don't have other challenges in terms of capacity, in terms of having to integrate with various entities. So if they create that layer, they deliver the government side or they deliver the other non-banking sides, we will be able to at least link them through our company. As I earlier mentioned, there has to be a shift in consumer behavior. There has to be a trust. So when you talk about e-commerce, what happens is most of it is cash on delivery because people don't trust. So these are definite challenges. Similarly, if someone who has all their life used cash, when you give them a card, they are not sure if this card works or whether their money would come out or not. So these are ground realities in our society. What we are trying to do is, let's for example, PayPack, we launched a campaign which was running in this last quarter of 2019. So campaigns actually create that awareness to some extent that there is a benefit attached to using a certain type of payment, and that is something which entices people to adopt such methods. One is obviously lack of POS machines, so no acceptance. Bigger merchants do it, smaller merchants don't do it. For that, what we are doing with QR would eventually make this better. But on the other side, there's a ground reality in Pakistan which is taxation. And if you talk about digital, it's all documented. And most of the merchant base is actually not very keen on digitizing or documenting their proceeds. And we have been in discussions with the regulator, with the acquirer. So what OneLink is trying to do is, if we are able to come up with a feasible model, we might be able to bring certain entities who will invest in POS in Pakistan, so that the pie grows, because we are a PCI DSS compliant entity, and we have our own complete security stack, which complements the technology stack. So transactions per se are all secured through this model. When you talk about data sharing, per se, apart from transaction data and the settlement data which happens, this is all on a lease line, and everything is end-to-end encrypted and secured. So that we do ensure. In terms of our MIS reporting which we generate for the banks, that is also specific to each bank, and it is only delivered to that bank. In terms of the technology stack, we do have a complete data repository where we are parking all these transaction data, but we do ensure that none of the sensitive data is actually retained at one link. So we don't capture people's card data per se, which is one of the concerns generally with the payment, digital payments. So because of the PCI compliance, either the data is encrypted or it is not stored. So that is ensured through a complete framework which we are following. For the years to come, we do believe this should be a double-digit growth in the card base, because now we can see that PayPal is not being only issued to just the lower tier of the customer segment, but it is gradually being offered to all segments per se. Obviously, when you talk about Visa, MasterCard or other schemes who offer Platinum and World cards, those come with certain benefits. So obviously we are not actually trying to compete on all fronts. But as a local card, we say that either it's a co-badge or a PayPal only. As long as it's a locally issued card, it should actually route locally. There's no point sending it across the world, and that just adds to the cost of transaction. So if there are multiple hops involved, multiple entities, everyone has their commissions, and it just increases the cost of the transaction. So we think PayPal will grow, and will grow quickly now.